Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of statistics, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Hello, and a warm Mancunian welcome to all my incredible listeners out there. I'm Deepa Thomas-Sutcliffe, your friendly host, and you've just tuned in to the 6th season of the Meet the Mancunian podcast, where I share remarkable social impact stories from the heart of Manchester throughout the season. This podcast is a celebration of the unsung heroes, the change makers, and the passionate souls who are making a real difference in our vibrant city. From social enterprises to non-profits and community groups, I bring you the voices of worker bees and volunteers, all coming together for a common cause. Through heartfelt conversations, my guests share their experiences, dreams, and unwavering commitment to making a difference. From the challenges they've overcome to the triumphs that fuel their passion, their stories will leave you moved, enlightened, and brimming with hope. Join me on this audio adventure as my guests and I explore the transformative power of collective action and the remarkable impact we can create when we unite for a common cause. Their tales are a testament to the power of community, collaboration, and the indomitable Mancunian spirit. They not only address pressing issues right here in Manchester, but also offer insights and inspiration that resonate far beyond these boundaries. So whether you're commuting, on a run, or just relaxing at home, I invite you to tune in on Apple, Spotify, Google, or any of your favorite podcasting platforms. You can also log on to my website, www.meetthemancunian.co.uk. Let's embark on this journey of discovery and inspiration. For my new listeners, you can catch up on the incredible stories from the first 5 seasons at www.meetthemancunian.co.uk, where you'll also find out more about my own journey as a podcaster. And to all my returning listeners, I can't thank you enough for your support. You make this podcast possible, and I'm immensely grateful. So join me as I continue to share these inspiring tales of change and community support from the beating heart of Manchester. Together, we can spread a bit of good news, spark meaningful conversations, and inspire positive action. Thank you for being a part of the Meet the Mancunian community. Welcome to the 8th episode of Season 6 of the Meet the Mancunian podcast, Social Impact Stories from Manchester. Passionate about supporting women in education, we hear from Yasmin Ariff, career and leadership coach and volunteer Women Ed in this episode. I would like to dedicate this episode to my darling mum, Annie Thomas, who was a dedicated school teacher working in India, helping children realize their potential. I'm delighted to introduce my guest, Yasmin Ariff, career and leadership coach and volunteer, Women Ed. Thank you so much for joining me today, Yasmin.
Thank you for having me, Deepa.
I know we're both trying to stay relatively cool in the middle of the afternoon on a weekend, but it is nice to have some not cold weather as well.
Yes, definitely.
So first, tell us about how you found your passion for supporting women in the community. I read about your passion for women-only spaces and how important they are on your blog around Women's Day. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I think it was a couple of years ago before lockdown when I went to my first Women Ed event. And it was a women-only event. for women leaders who work in education. And it was the first time I'd experienced that kind of setting where women were lifting up each other and sharing their sort of frustration with the systems, and you felt safe to share anything you wanted to, and you didn't have to tiptoe around anybody. And it just really enlightened me, and I've never experienced that before. And I just thought it's really important that we have more of these women-only spaces, because I think that's part of the problem in education, especially. The gender pay gap is wide, and more men are in senior roles, even though the profession is dominated more by women. And I think it's because women aren't given the spaces to sort of figure out how to get promotion, or perhaps when they go on maternity leave, they come back and we call it the motherhood penalty, because women are held back. They've got childcare costs, and childcare in itself is a massive responsibility. So yes, I think that was the catalyst for me, that women-only space. And since then, I've been supporting women leaders, not just in education, but outside of education, to advance their careers.
Thank you. And that brings us very well to coaching. And you have your own coaching service. And what are your areas of focus there?
A range of themes, but they are common themes that women seem to bring to my sessions. So the common themes that some of my women coaches might share are lack of confidence, and I'm hesitant to use the word imposter syndrome, because I think that is actually an unfair way of pathologizing actually quite natural emotions that we experience as women, which is perhaps sometimes you might feel uncertain, you might get a promotion, or you might be in a new job and just feel a bit insecure and uncertain, which is quite natural because it's all new. And we tend to call it imposter syndrome. But actually, what I try and get women to understand is these are all natural emotions. It doesn't mean that you're less than. And we look at ways of exploring those emotions, embracing them and using them to empower us rather than disempower us. So I think one of the main areas is increasing confidence, not pathologizing natural emotions. And I guess a lot of women who come to me are in their 30s, 40s. And I think that's the point. Certainly in schools, women tend to leave education. So they come to me at a bit of a crossroad, wanting to explore next steps, maybe feeling perhaps a little frustrated. So I do a lot of coaching around how to tap into their inner knowing, their inner guide, because I feel like everyone's got that, but we get so clouded by the day-to-day life. We lose touch with our voice. I help them to tap into that voice to really find out what it is they need to do.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think both are really important, because everyone has a superpower, as I call it.
Yes.
There are things we do well and our strengths, and we spend a lot of time developing areas we're not so good at, but sometimes we need to lean into what we do well. And the other one, of course, is this element of confidence, because whether we use the term imposter syndrome or not, there's a lot of statistics about how women are hesitant to put themselves forward, and men, even if they're skilled and experienced, whereas men may not have the experience but have the confidence to go and put themselves forward. And sometimes it's, if you're not at the table, if you're not leaning in, how do you get the opportunity to get promoted? Then you're waiting for the goodwill of your team or your leaders, which may not always be the case. There is a case perhaps for all of us to say, hey, we can do this.
Absolutely. And women are also facing all sorts of unconscious bias, because Vivian Porritt, who is the strategic lead for Women Ed, said this, and it resonated with me, is when a woman goes and asks for a pay rise or a promotion, she's thought less of than if a man was to ask for a pay rise or promotion. He's thought more highly of and seen as confident.
I know this pay gap issue is quite real in many different industries, and it's great that you're coaching people about that. So tell us a little bit about your volunteering activities with Women Ed. You said you've got many roles with Women's Ed, so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I have, first of all, offered free coaching to women leaders in the women ed community to help them overcome a variety of issues, but also that's really helping to inform my research, because we have this end goal. It's not even an end goal, it's a goal that we want to continue to create a women ed coaching community. And what we are going to do is train up women ed coaches using the apprenticeship levy and pay those women to coach the women leaders skilled support network for women in education. So we're in the early stages at the moment, but I'm doing a lot of pro bono work with the women ed community, coaching them. And that's just informing my research so that we know what are the common themes that women leaders bring to the table. And once we've pinpointed those, we can then create really bespoke coaching models that are fit for the women's issues and themes that they bring to the table. So it's a really exciting time. We've actually got a cohort of women ed leaders starting in September next Thursday, and they will be on a 12-month apprenticeship, a coaching professional apprenticeship, where we will train them to coach and all the skills that you need to be a great coach, with a view that they then, after they've graduated, coach for the women leaders in the women.
This sounds like a very exciting time, both the cohort as well as that skilled network of supporters and people who will uplift other women.
Yeah.
That you're trying to build with Women Ed. That's really interesting. Have there been challenges on this journey that you've faced, both through your coaching or your volunteering? Tell us about how you overcome them as well.
One that stands out to me, and this is quite relevant because it links to the recent release of, have you seen the Barbie movie?
I haven't, but I've heard a lot about it.
And what quite interesting is about when that came out, it with a lot of women, it brought light to them a different perspective, or it actually highlighted how they were feeling. But then I think there was a lot of backlash, a lot of people, men, maybe even women, saying things like, this is toxic feminism, that it's really exaggerating real life, there isn't such a problem as the movie depicts. And I think that's sometimes how you feel supporting women to advance, when people I don't want to use the word gaslight, but sometimes it is gaslighting you, saying you've got your position, I've got a female head teacher, I've got a female boss, I've got lots of examples of women progressing, I've not experienced those problems. And I think that's a challenge, just trying to really get people to understand that there is still a problem. And I think that the way we overcome that, and the women ed community are amazing at, is they do lots of deep research. This isn't just based on opinions and experiences, although the lived experience of women are so important. It's backed up by research, and the Women Ed have a book out full of research to show sort of the injustice and the disparity between how much men get paid compared to how much women get paid. But also there's a new book coming out soon as well with more up-to-date research. So I think that's the main challenge that stands out to me, just trying to communicate the truth. And in order to do that, I think fact and research is a really powerful tool.
Thank you for sharing that. You're absolutely right. And sometimes we use our own reality, which maybe everybody's got different backgrounds, contexts, and you can't assume that's the case for everyone. You've told us a little bit about who you help and support, but I think you also referred to work you do in the apprentice program. If you want to talk about that now.
Yes, thank you. That would be really exciting, because this is something that I got into when I left teaching about 18 months ago. I'm so excited and passionate about it. It's a great opportunity to be able to share it with anyone. So I did my coaching training before I started the apprenticeship training, and it's expensive training to be a coach. And I think historically, coaching has always been exclusive to the C-suite, the exec, and your middle managers, your frontline staff didn't really, and don't really, I think, just from working with organisations, have much access to coaching. So when I started working in apprenticeships with my brother, I realised that there was an apprenticeship levy, and if you go on the Institute of Apprenticeship website, which I did, you can find a range of apprenticeships that the government will fund. And I found a coaching one. And I just thought, this is fantastic. This is a really robust standard curriculum that you could make out of the standard that they created. But it's funded through the government. So if your employer supports you, then you can complete your coaching training on the job with your employer, fully funded. So I, for example, paid about £8,000 for all my training, and I'm still paying a lot. But the apprenticeship is £5,000 and it's fully funded through the government. I said to my brother, we must look into delivering this, because coaching, I feel, is still bubbling before the surface in the workplace. Some employers are buying into it, others aren't quite there yet. There's a lot of talk about it, but I think because it's expensive, that's why perhaps there's also a bit of resistance. We've basically been running the coaching apprenticeship for a year now, and our first cohort will go through at the end of this year. We are really passionate about democratizing coaching in the workplace so that everyone has access to a coach, not just your senior leaders. And that means training as many leaders as possible in coaching skills so that everyone can have a coach. We've got, like I mentioned, the Women Ed cohort starting in September, and we've got another one starting in March for Women Ed. But we're also looking to work with charities like Coffee for Create. They will be enrolling with us on the coaching apprenticeship in October, because if you are a charity, you also get access to the government funding, and we can train your team up in coaching skills, which means that then you can coach your guests or any of the people that you work with from disadvantaged or marginalised communities. So this is a really exciting time to be able to, I think, democratise coaching across a range of.
I think this is really great. Thank you for sharing that. Coaches can be very useful at many different points in your life, whether you're starting a new job, looking into a new role, or just having a difficult time and trying to find yourself. So many ways one can benefit from a coach. Tell us about the impact you've made so far through all of your work, whether it be the coaching, the volunteering with Women's Ed, or the apprentice scheme.
Yes, of course. The impact, I think, on an anecdotal level, through perhaps, let's talk about the apprenticeship, the coaching apprenticeship, what I've noticed is common theme with leaders who have studied the coaching apprenticeship with us. They're just really taken aback at how fast they work on a day-to-day basis and how fast their brains work. Daniel Kahneman called it System 1, System 2, and System 1's the automatic brain, and sometimes we need System 2 to slow the brain down and make quality decisions, but pace of living, the way we live our lives today, just doesn't lend itself to that. When the leaders come on the coaching apprenticeship and they take time out and they're trained in these really, sometimes quite technical skills, in questioning and slowing your coach's brain down, challenging limiting beliefs that sometimes just get the best of us, they realise, oh, this is something we don't do enough of. We don't have quality thinking environments, and we need more of it, because otherwise you are just on autopilot, and that's where we stifle creativity and innovation. So I think that's really heartening to see leaders recognise that they need to slow down, and then taking that to their teams and getting their teams to slow down. That's really important. And I think the other impact that stands out to me is a lot of the coachees, through either the ones that I've coached or the ones that the coaches I've trained have coached, have sent back to either myself or their coachees that either they wouldn't still be working in that workplace if it wasn't for having that coach to support them. They would have left by now. And just being seen and heard had such a profound impact on them that it gave them the strength to continue. And I think that's really important, that so many people feel seen and heard. And because of that, they're growing resilience and they feel empowered to carry on.
That is an amazing impact. Like you said, being seen and heard, being supported through difficult circumstances. in people's lives. That is really an amazing impact. Thank you for doing what you do, and I hope that community continues to thrive.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome.
How can interested people reach out to you and learn more? Where can they find you, and where can they find Women's Ed?
There's a variety of channels. I think the Women Ed community are all over social media. They're very prolific on Twitter, but you can reach them also through me because I have lots of links to them through my bio. So I have a website, www.yasminariffcoaching.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. And we run the coaching apprenticeships through CVP Group. So our website is www.cvpgroup.co.uk. So there's a couple of ways of reaching out to us.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'll include that in my show notes as well. What advice would you have for people looking to start a similar movement in their local community? We've got listeners now from 50 countries, but also potentially people who are just interested, maybe in another part of the UK as well. How do they get started?
I think the best mantra for me is to tell yourself, yes, you can. Yes, you can do whatever you want. But the biggest challenge for people is, can do what? So what am I supposed to do? And I think for me, it was really tapping into the inner voice that I referenced earlier today in the podcast. And I got that through a lot of introspection. I do practice yoga every day. I practice meditation every day. And I think that really helped me to get quiet. And the more quiet I got, the more loud this voice got inside me saying, you need to leave teaching. There's something else. There's something else. And I didn't know what it was, but it was there. It was like, it's time. So I think my best advice is just get really quiet, whichever method you want, and tap into that inner voice. And then when that voice comes and you start doubting it, you tell yourself, yes, you can.
Very good advice. Very difficult to do, I think, to go silent and just slowly listen. But really handy advice, because I think, again, it's being true to yourself, true to your strengths.
Yeah.
And that's really great that you were able to do that and hopefully help people do that as well.
Yes, I think you're very right. It sounds so easy in theory, just be quiet, but it's easier said than done, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I must say that's something I do struggle with, mindfulness and meditation. I have other ways to relax and decompose, but yeah, sometimes this is something that will come one day. An opportunity now for you to talk about anything I haven't asked you about. Anything coming up in the next 2 or 3 months? You talked about the September cohort, but anything else you want to mention?
Yes, the Women Ed Global Conference is on the 30th of September. Unfortunately, I am travelling, so I will not be able to attend it, but CVP will be represented, and there'll be lots of other things on. So that's in London. That would be a great event for any women leaders in education to attend, or aspiring leaders. And just that the coaching apprenticeship is open to any sector, any gender, and it's an absolutely inclusive apprenticeship. We welcome all different levels of leaders onto it from different backgrounds. We have 1 or 2 spaces left for October, and then we have a cohort starting in April 2024. So it'd be great if anyone listening was working in England and employed and wants some coaching training to get in touch and join one of our cohorts.
Lovely. And shout out to anybody in England who's interested. Thank you for sharing that. I now come to the signature questions I ask all my guests, and it's my favorite bit of the podcast. So can you describe the Mancunian spirit in a word or a phrase?
Oh, I love the Mancunian spirit. Let me think. Real.
Thank you. That is an interesting one to take for sure. Can you share a Mancunian who inspires you and why?
And to say, I think, an inspiration for his own life story. He was a looked after child, and he's turned into this really inspirational poet and I'm an English teacher first and foremost. That's what I trained in. So I think that's the synergy there, my love for poetry and words and the way that he brings them to life. think he's a great one.
One of my guests, he was a poet from a poet society, and he recited one of Lemsis's poems, and I follow him on Twitter as well. Very interesting.
I think he's one up there for me.
What's the most important life lesson you've learned so far?
I think in the spirit of coaching, to be more non-judgmental. And I think only in my latter part of my sort of 30s, I'm 40 in November, I think only in the latter years, especially when I did the coaching training, I really realised how judgmental we all can be, but it highlighted my own prejudices and bias. And I think through coaching, because you have to hold a non-judgmental space, it's on your radar more, and the more it's on your radar, the more you tuned into it, which made me, when I went back into sort of my non-coaching world, my day-to-day life, I applied it there. And I just thought, sometimes you meet people and you make assumptions about them, or they might say something and then you might spin this story about them. And I realized I did that a lot more than I thought I am. So I think that's my biggest life lesson through my coaching training, is just to be less judgmental. And I think going back to the point where I said, get quiet and get silent, because you access something, I think, through that quiet. It just means you don't judge. You switch a part of your brain that judges off more. So the more we get quiet, I think that helps us to train the brain to be less judgmental.
I think it's a really important one. And I think, like you said, we put labels to people very easily, and we make some assumptions. I'm talking more generally rather than anybody specific. But I think there is a bit of assuming we all have a similar context. We all come home to a good home and have all the privileges that maybe other people don't have. I use a different term. Perhaps I use it as a bit of emotional intelligence and really deep listening. And then you're much more accepting of people, and you give them a chance to tell you what's going on, rather than assuming this is what's going on.
This is great leadership as well that you're describing.
Absolutely. One to keep working at, because it doesn't come easy, but you definitely want to keep getting better at emotional intelligence. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I've joined a gym and I've been doing a bit of CrossFit, and I'm finding pull-ups really hard. So if I had a superpower, I would be able to do more pull-up quicker.
That's a fun one, yeah. Is there a funny story you'd like to share with listeners, or a sweet story to share with listeners?
I've got one. It's a bit of a family story, but I think it's like a moral lesson. I'll tell the story and then maybe the lesson will become real. So last week, I saw a mouse in my house, and it ran from under my sofa and then went into a crevice in the kitchen, and I was terrified of this tiny little mouse. It was so small. And I just packed my bags and I went staying at my mum and dad's, because I can't be in that house. And I made such a big fuss of it, and I was almost like physiologically impacted by it. I was sweating and I was a bit hysterical. And then I told my brother, and he said, this is what Theo says about mice. And Theo's my nephew, and he's 5 years old. And it just made me realise how silly I was being. He was like, Dad, I don't know why people are so scared of mice. He was like, they're so small and cute. And it just made me realise, oh, you're being so ridiculous. This tiny little mouse who's more terrified than me of it, and my little 5-year-old nephew's just captured that innocence, just captures, doesn't it, reality more.
I sympathize with you, because I would probably react very similarly. Yes. But I like what your nephew said, because there's a mouse in our garden and he looks suspiciously like the squirrel. So the squirrels are cute.
Yes.
So we're letting him be. We're not doing anything about it, as long as he's clear that he has to stay in the garden.
That's it, isn't it? And I think my friend also, she talked to me a bit about it, and she added some insight, which was she had a rabbit at her allotment, and I find rabbits really cute, and some of the men on the allotment wanted to shoot it, and I thought that was barbaric. And we talk sometimes about the arrogance of man, like we think this world is ours, it's humans, we think that we own it, and we do everything we can to monopolize it and take over, but actually it's as much the mouse's land as mine. It's as much the rabbit's land as mine. I think that's the moral of the story that I was trying to get at there.
It's a very good one, and thank you for sharing that. I'm very much an animal lover, and I would love a world where animals were treated better. I know there are many people who treat them well, but there are many who are not so nice.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. This has been a real pleasure. It's been great to hear so much about the good work you're doing, both to uplift other women as well as to bring more coaches into the world.
Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure. I hope that it added some value to people who listen to your podcast and yourself.
Yasmin, I really enjoyed learning about helping women in education today. Dear listener, thank you so much for listening to the 8th episode of the Meet the Mancunian podcast, Season 6. Tune in every Tuesday for a new episode, or log on to meetthemancunian.co.uk to listen to all the episodes and learn more about my podcasting story. Next week, on Tuesday, 24th October 2023, I speak to Jane Wells about supporting employability for the youth. Apologies if you are a returning listener. I decided a break from the theme of youth may be good for listeners, and hence we had a focus on women in this episode. Thank you for joining me on this enriching journey through the social impact stories of Manchester with the 6th season of the Meet the Mancunian podcast. I hope the stories you heard today have sparked a fire of inspiration within you. May they serve as a gentle reminder that no dream is too big and no passion too small. Your feedback means the world to me. Visit www.meetthemancunian.co.uk to share your thoughts, suggestions, and the causes that touched your heart. Your input helps me craft a podcast that truly touches hearts and makes a difference in our community. Stay connected with the podcast on social media. You can find us at @Meet the Mancunian on Instagram, on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter at @MancunianPod. Sharing and leaving a comment would be a fantastic way to spread the word and build a vibrant community of change-making. Before I sign off, remember to introduce this podcast to your friends and family so together we can amplify the impact and reach of these incredible stories. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of the Meet the Mancunian family. Your support fuels my passion, and I can't wait to bring you more compelling stories that will touch your heart and fuel your soul. Until we meet again in the next episode, let's keep creating waves of change together. Remember, the world needs the Mancunian spirit, so go out there and be the change you wish to see. Take care, stay inspired.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of statistics, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.